Hello and welcome everyone. So today, or for today, you have read about dictionaries, sets, and pickling. And even if the topics themselves are maybe not that complicated to understand, it can become a little bit tricky when you're using them in your code. Or maybe I should say it becomes a little bit tricky to know when to use it in your code. Um, but luckily for us, that is what we will be practicing this week. Um, and as we have seen the last couple of weeks, my plan for today is that first I have a section where I will give you guys some information. After that, we will look at the result of the quiz this week. And next up is a section where we look at an example together. And then finally, the fun part where you get to start working on the tasks from lecture 10. So information, then quiz, then an example, and then work on your own with the tasks. So that is the plan for today. And let's jump straight into the information section. And I would like to start with a comment on examination 1. I have now had a chance to look at all your submissions, and most of you guys had really good reports this time, but there are still a few of you who either made a mistake or who don't take the report serious. For the next hand-in for task 3, I will fail everyone who, or I should say, I will fail anyone who don't download, use, and follow the template. So just have that in mind. And it's not fun as a teacher when you correct a submission and you look at the code and the code looks really good, but then when you open the report, either it's just a blank page, there's no text in it, or it has not followed the requirements set by the template. And then all there is to do is to fail that submission, and as I said, that's not fun. Another thing, did you guys see my message I sent out yesterday? I know that at least some of you had an exam yesterday, so maybe you didn't see the message, but I want to bring it up because I would recommend you to, as soon as possible, register for the upcoming course Object-Oriented Programming. So normally the week before a course starts, you are able to register for that course. So that means that next week you will be able to register for the Object-Oriented Programming course and any other courses that starts right after this one. And the reason I do recommend you guys to register for that one and start looking at it as soon as you can is because there is a transition from Python to Java. And to get a little bit of time to do that transition, maybe it would be good to do that as soon as you can register for it. And if you are interested in starting a little bit early before you can register for the course, there is a playlist on my YouTube channel where there are videos that will be used for the transition between Python to Java. But that is the link to that one, to that playlist is in the message that I sent out yesterday. So have a look there if you're interested. And the last thing I want to bring up here under this section where we talk about general information is that it's soon time for you guys to do the course evaluation. In the end of the course, you should do a course evaluation. So sometime next week you will be able to do the course evaluation for this course and for other courses that you have taken at the same time or that you're currently taking. And I was thinking that we could have a look at the questions that you will get for that course evaluation, so you are a little bit prepared for what you will see in that evaluation, so what to expect. So just give me a second here and I will share a document with you guys. So what we can see now here on the screen is the report that I got as a teacher last year after the students made the evaluation last year. So in here we will take a look at the questions that you will get. So if we just scroll down, we can see that first it starts out with 7 questions, and here you will grade them from 1 to 5, where 1 is I don't agree and 5 is I agree. And if we just quickly go over them, we can see that the first one is gives you the option to say if you like the course or not. What is your general opinion about the course? Is it positive? And if you agree, you would grade in the upper part, and if you don't agree, then in the lower part here. So remember, 1 to 5, I don't agree is 1 and I agree is 5. The next question is during the course, did you have all the information that you needed to pursue your studies? That means was the information available so that you knew for what chapters to read before each lecture, for example? And did you know what videos to watch before each lecture? Was there information available telling you when the examinations were to take place and what the examinations were about? So if you agree that that information was available, then you should grade it up here in I agree, and otherwise, if you don't agree, in the lower part of the scale. Next question, looking at the learning outcomes from the syllabus, is that what we covered during the course? So did we cover what we should cover, or did I go and talk about something completely different? The next one here, the fourth one, it is about if you took advantage of reading the course literature. So did you read the course literature during the course? But also there is a second part here where it says and or supplementary course material. Meaning that, all right, the first part is simple. Did you read the course literature and did it help you for passing the course? And the second part here is about supplementary course material. So that is, for example, the tasks that we have under the lecture and exercise. So did you do those? Did you watch the videos where there is an analysis and an implementation of the videos or the task from the lecture? Or did you read the example solutions from the exercise? Did you find the link collections for each lecture helpful? So it's both the course literature, but also all other supplementary course material that we had. So did you like that or didn't you? All right, so it was about the message that I sent out yesterday, but I saw that someone answered it. Thank you so much. The next one here, the next question, how did you find the communication with the teacher? Was the communication with the teacher okay, or was it lacking? That's the next question. And if we continue here, the examinations, were they relevant? Did they cover what we covered in the course? So when we have had our examinations, was that on what we covered in the course, in the chapter in the course literature and the videos from the lectures and so on. And how would you say that the demand put on you as a student was? Was it reasonable? And here for this question, it is assumed that you are a full-time student. So if you are studying 40 hours a week, was the demand put on you reasonable? And then if we just continue here, the next question, here you get some options to say how many hours did you spend a week on the course. And now during the pandemic, there is also a few questions. We'll see two of them here that asks about teaching on distance. And we can see here, was there any change to the course? Was the course originally planned to be on campus, but it changed due to the corona pandemic? So in our case, yes, we were supposed to be on campus, but now we have the lectures online. So and how did you find your experience taking part in our lectures? That one is also 1 to 5, so you grade if it was very poor or it was okay, it was very good or it went okay. If we continue, then me as a teacher, when I get this report, I get a summary of it. You as a student won't see this one. But then if we continue down, we'll see that then there are some open-ended questions where you can write anything that you like. So the first question here is, what did you find good about the course? What were the things that you liked about the course? So here you can write anything that you want. Just as an example here, some students wrote that they found the teachers and the TAs helpful, and even if the tasks were challenging, they found it quite satisfying when they solved them in the end. So that was positive for them. And we're not going to look at all the comments here, but what you should write here in this section is things that you think worked well in the course, things that you liked about the course. And then if we scroll down, the next question is maybe not a surprise then, because now the next question is, what didn't you like about the course? What could be improved about the course? And here you're more than welcome to give suggestions. And if just one example here too, we'll take the first one here. One student wrote last year that they found that their learning curve was quite steep, and especially between the first lab and the second and the third one. So that after the first one, it became much trickier, and maybe the teacher should warn about that. And there was someone here writing that they would have liked it if the course literature was available so that they could buy it. And there are here you are free to write anything that you find that could be improved in the course. And if we scroll past those comments, we see that the next section here, the last section is also about teaching on distance. And you can give comments about that. I'll just scroll down here and see that here, for example, you can answer what worked well when we had our lectures and what worked less well. So if you want to say something that didn't work so well and maybe could be changed for the better, and maybe if you have some suggestion of how to do it, you can write that down here. And so that's the questions that you will get for the course evaluation. The first ones are the ones that we saw up here. Let's see if I can find them again, where you grade them 1 to 5. Then there's also open-ended questions where you can give feedback, positive or negative. And then there's also a few questions about teaching over the internet, so teaching on a distance. I just want to show you so that you know what to expect. One thing that I didn't show, maybe I should show that again. Let's see if we can find it. I'll share it again and I'll scroll down a little bit, because the answers that you give, they are anonymous. So the only thing I as a teacher see when I get this report is what you wrote as a comment. So I don't see your name or anything. The only way I can see your name is if you write it in the comment. So if you say, my name is, and then you give your name, and I think this was a good course, then of course I would see your name in there. But as long as you don't write your name in here, all I get is your comment. So it's good to know that the feedback that you give is anonymous. And I would like to take a second to say that I would appreciate it if as many of you guys as possible could do this course evaluation. Everyone's opinion matters. So it doesn't matter if you liked the course or if you didn't like it. It doesn't matter if you feel that you're good at programming or if you're struggling with programming. Everyone's opinion is important. And the more of you who give feedback, the better it is for me as a teacher to see what I have to improve for next year. So please take the time. It doesn't take many minutes. You saw most of the questions are just where you should grade it 1 to 5. And then there are some open questions where you can give feedback to. So it doesn't take many minutes to do it. And it should be available next week for you guys to start working on it. You will get a message about it. I think you get an email or something. But I will also remind you when I see that the course evaluation is live. But all right, let's jump ahead. If there are no questions, if you have any questions, just write them in the chat. But if there are no questions, we will jump in and look at the quiz that you guys did for this week. And when I did take a look at the quiz, the statistics were really good this week, I think. So you did a really good job at answering the quiz. And that is true for the whole course, really. But it makes me happy every time I see it, that it turns out okay. Of course, it would be nice if more people did a quiz, but for those who did it, you did really well. So let's have a look at the statistics. There were 74 of you who choose to do the quiz, and that is roughly 54% of students registered in the course. And it took around 10 minutes to do the quiz this time. And on average, those who did the quiz scored 93% correct answers. 93% correct answers. So really good result. And this was the last quiz that we had in the course. So I thought it would be fun to see how many of you collected enough quiz points to get the extra 2 points for examination 1. So I took a look, and it was 64 students who managed to get enough points to get those extra 2 points for examination 1, and that translates to roughly 47% of students in the course. So well done, and a big congratulations to those who now get those 2 extra points for examination 1. And looking at the individual questions this time on the quiz, there was no question that stood out as extra tricky. As I said, there were on average 93% correct answers. Of course, there was someone who gave the wrong answer to each question, but generally speaking, nothing that is worth mentioning. So I think what we will do instead, we'll continue to the example, but I'll just see that there was a question here. And there was a question: what if you already have the full marks for examination 1? Yeah, then the quiz doesn't matter. So the quiz is only there to help you get 2 extra points if you need them. So it's not mandatory. You can collect all the points needed by just doing the tasks. So it's definitely not mandatory for the quiz. It was just a little bit of an how do you say it? An encouragement to be active during the course, to do something every week. If you did a quiz and you collected enough points during the course, then you would be awarded those extra 2 points. But all right, let me see if I can share my Visual Studio Code with you guys. See if we can find it here. There we have it. So for the example today, I have prepared some code, and it is similar to one of the tasks from the course literature, but it's still a little bit different. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to look at it, but before you look at the code, what we see here is that we will have a menu where we can choose to find the number of a person. And the end goal here is that, all right, we'll look at the code, we'll try it out to see how it works now. But the end goal is that we will make 2 changes to it. We will introduce a reverse lookup, and we will also use pickling to load a phone book when we start the script. So those are the 2 changes that we will make later. But first, take a few minutes to read the code and see what it does. So I'll be back in just a short while, and then we will continue from there. All right, then I think we will continue. And the first thing that we will do is that we will try to run it and see how it works. So let's run the script and see. All right, so we are presented with a menu. And if we select option 1, we're going to find a name, or we're going to specify a name. And if I say that I'm looking for the phone number of Anna, we can see that, all right, it finds Anna's number. And if we try one again and search for someone who's not in our phone book, we have Anna and Kalle in our phone book. But what if I search for Max? Then it says that we could not find that name in our phone book. And also we have one option to quit the script. All right, so that is how it works right now. And the first thing that we're going to look at is reverse lookup. And what is reverse lookup? Well, maybe a short story first. If we go back in time to when I was young, when I was a kid, we had stationary phones, so we didn't have any mobile phones, and the only way you knew who called was if you answered the call and asked who it was. So there was no name showing up when someone called or something. So you had to answer the phone and see who it was who was calling. And then a few years later, when I was a little bit older, we got something called a caller ID, a box that you connected between the wall and your phone, that when someone called, it would show the phone number of whoever was calling. So then you could decide if you wanted to answer or not before you actually picked up the phone and actually talk to someone. You could see who was calling. And that was progress at that time, but you still only saw the phone number of who was calling. A few years later, phones were released where you in your phone could register a phone number and also attach a name to it. So when someone was calling, suddenly you could see who was calling, and it said the name of the person calling. But you had to register every number in your phone for that to work. And what we will do here is something similar to that, to a reverse lookup. If we get the number, can we get the name? Because if we look at our dictionary that we have here, we can see that the key is Anna and the phone number is the value. So we know how we can use the key to find the value, but how do we use the value to find the key? So that is a reverse lookup, and that is the first thing that we will look at, how we can do today. And I think we will start by changing the menu that is printed. So we will add one more option to the menu to say that, all right, we want to find name. And if we print it on the screen, we must also add it to our if, checking what option the user selects. So if we say elif choice is equal to 2, what should we do then? Well, let's use find name, and we're sending along our phone book. I know that we haven't created the function find a name yet. That is the next thing that we will do. But what we have done so far is to say that, all right, print that option in the menu. And if the user selects that one, we are going to call a function called find a name. So I will write that function here, the function that does the reverse lookup for us. And then when I have written it, we will try the script, see that it works, and then we will talk about the function. So just give me a second here and I'll add that function for us. And while I write it, you can read the code at the same time and see if you can follow along, but we will talk about it when I'm done with it. All right, so the function has been added, but before we look at the code, let's just try to run it and see how it works. So now if we select option 2 here, and we enter a number, let's try, I think Anna's number was this. And we can see that, all right, then using the number, we can now find the name of whoever has that number. And if we try it again and we take a number that doesn't exist in our phone book, we can say that it says no contact with that number found. So, all right, how did we accomplish this? Well, we created this new function here, which takes our dictionary, our phone book, as a parameter, and then we asked the user what number we have, what number to use when we look for the name. And then what we do is that we say that, all right, so now we know what number to look for. And here we say that, all right, from our dictionary, I want all the items. So what this will give us is each of these entries, key value pairs, as a tuple, one at a time. So the first time we get Anna and her number, the next time we get Kalle and his number. And what we do here on this line is we also at the same time do a tuple unpacking. So we store that information in name and number. All right, so we check then for the number that we picked out here from the dictionary, from this first entry, the first key value pair. Does that match the one that we're looking for? If it does, what we do is that we print the information to say that, yeah, we found who this number belongs to, and then we break out of the loop. All right, so that means that we will continue in the loop, checking each key value pair, and if we find the one that we're looking for, we print that we found it and we break out of the loop. If we have found a number, there is no need to continue looking on all the other entries or all the other key value pairs. But then there is this tricky part. I've seen here in the chat too that shouldn't this be indented? Shouldn't this be for the if statement here? Would it work the same if we indented this one step or one more indentation level? And no, it wouldn't. Because if they are not the same, then it would say that it didn't find it each time that it doesn't find the number or it doesn't match. So if we say that we're looking for Kalle, when we're checking Anna, it would say that no, I didn't find it this time. And then it continues to look at Kalle. But what we do with this approach here instead is that we say that, all right, go over all the key value pairs, this line here, and if you find a match, then print that information and break out of the loop. And if we have an else connected to a for, what it means is that this else will only be executed, the statements in this else block will only be executed if we don't break out of the for loop. So as soon as we break out of the for loop, whatever is in the else will not run. So if we find a number, we break out of the loop, then the else will not run. But on the other hand, if we look through all the numbers here and we don't find the one that we're looking for, then we have not used the break, meaning that when we exit the loop, there is the else, meaning that, all right, then we will print this message to the user. So this will only be printed if we don't break out of the loop. Does it make sense? If not, just write in the chat and we will take a look at it again. But normally when we see else statements, we see them connected to an if statement, but we can also do it to a loop like this. All right, so we saw that this was working. And the next step that we will jump and look at is pickling. So, all right, we have done a reverse lookup where we used the value to find the key. But now it's time to save our dictionary to a file and then later load it back. What I said that we should do is that we should add reverse lookup and we should read our phone book from a file. But to be able to read it from a file, I must first create it. So I don't have the file yet, but we need to create it. So that is the first thing that I will do. But I know that I will be using pickling, so I say that I import pickle. We will need that. And there is one more thing. I will also add my file name where I will both store and then later retrieve my dictionary. I will have that as a constant, a global constant. So I'll call it file name. And where will I be storing this? I will be storing it on my desktop. And I will call it phonebook.dat. And if we just stop here for 1 second, we can see that, all right, I will store it on my desktop, and we see that the extension I use is dat. Normally you use dat if it is data that you're storing in a file, if it's binary data. Sometimes you also see the extension being bin for binary or ser, S-E-R, for serialized data. But here I will be using dat to indicate that this is a binary file. So don't name your binary files .txt because they don't contain a regular readable plain text. Instead, we will be storing it as binary data. All right, so now we know where we should store this file. So let's create a function for actually creating the file and storing our dictionary in the file. So I'll call it save phone book maybe. And I'll write the code and then we'll go over it together. So just give me a second here and I will write the code for it. All right, so here is the function for storing our dictionary to a file. But we must run it, so we must call it, and I'll do that. The first thing that we do in main here. So before we talk about it, let's try to just run it. And we see that we didn't get any errors. And I can see here on my screen that we actually got a file stored on the desktop. But if we take a look at what we did here, we say that, all right, we don't take any parameters. So the reason that I created this function was just to show how we can use Pickle to create a file. And we hard-coded the phone book that we will store to a file. And then we open this file that we specified, and we are opening it for writing, and it's also binary. And I call it out file, and we will later use that out file when we're using pickle dump to store this dictionary in that file. And here maybe it's a good place to take a short break and talk about this file that we get, because the file, if you try to open it, it will not contain plain text. It is binary data. Often, sometimes when you open it, you can kind of see some parts that make sense, maybe a name or maybe a number, but other parts are just random characters. So what we are storing here is our dictionary, and we store it. Think of it as an object that we are storing into that file. So we cannot open it and manually change it. Instead, it is meant to save that object, that dictionary, to the file, so that we later on can read it back. And that is the next step that we will do here. We will read it back, because what I said in the beginning of this example was that the goal was to read it back when we start our script. So we should read our phone book from a file. But to be able to do that, we have to create a function for reading it back. So I'll write the code for it. It's similar to what we have here, but not quite the same. So I'll write it and then we'll go over it together. So if we stop here, we can see that, all right, what we're doing in this function, read phone book, it is the opposite of what we did here when we save it. So now we're going to read it back. We're using the same file name, and we're specifying that, all right, I'm going to read a binary file. So I open that, and we're calling that in file. And then we use pickle load to read from that file. And when we're reading it back, we don't do what we did with our text files, where we read one line at a time. Instead, what we're doing here is that we're reading the complete dictionary back. So what we get back here from reading, when we read from the file, is the dictionary. So when I return here, I return whatever we read from the file. What I will be returning is a dictionary that has this information in it. But all right, if this function can read something back from a file, it reads that dictionary back, we have to call it too. So what I will do is that I will comment out these two lines, and instead I'm going to say that the phone book is equal to read phone book from a file. So we'll get back to this and why I commented it out in a second, but let's first just try to run it and see what happens. So if we look for, we take option 1, find number. So if I'm looking for Anna, we can see that we get Anna's number back. And if we give a number and trying to find the name, whoever owns that number, we can see that that works too. So even if we commented out this part where we declared our dictionary and instead read it from a file, we can see that it works. So it must have read that dictionary from the file. And the reason I commented out both of these is that we only needed to run save phone book once to generate that file. And now that we have that file with a dictionary in it, we don't have to do or redo the generating and saving it to file each time that we start our script, because we already have that file that contains the dictionary. And the same here, the reason I commented out the hard-coded values was, yeah, we want to read it from the file. All right, any questions? No questions so far, good. And this script with the code will be available later on, so it will be on Canvas, and it's actually already on Canvas. So if you go to Canvas, go to the modules page, and then scroll down to activity recording, it is already posted there together with, or I should say it is what we did with the Swedish group this morning, but it is the same script. So it's already available there if you want to look at the code on your own and try it on your computer. All right. And there are a few more things I would like to mention before I let you guys start working on the tasks from lecture 10. Next week, we only have a lecture planned, and the plan for that one, for that lecture, was that we could have it as an extra resource in case maybe I got sick or something, or something came up during the course, so we needed more time. But luckily I didn't get sick, or we didn't need to use it. So I have been thinking about how we could use that one. And in the past, sometimes we have had a vote for what we could do for that last lecture when we haven't needed it. But I think this year I have come up with a topic that I think will tie the course together, hopefully nicely, and that might also be a little bit of an inspiration for the future. So I have a topic in mind that I will have a lecture around, and it will most likely be a pre-recorded lecture. But there will be more information about next week's lecture when we get closer to that lecture. So in the end of this week or in the beginning of next week, I will post more information about it on Canvas. All right, and when we talk about the future, I would just like to remind you guys again that that you should do the course evaluation that is published next week, that one too. So do the course evaluation next week, and everyone's opinion is important. So please take a few minutes out of your day to do the course evaluation. That would mean a lot to me. So I would appreciate it a lot if you could do that. And as you saw, it's completely anonymous. There is no way for me to see who write what feedback. So that's good to know too. And we have had the course together, so you know what didn't feel great or what felt great for you. And you are the only one who knows that. So please share that feedback with me so I can improve the course for next year. But with that, I think it is time to jump into the questions or the tasks from lecture 10. So now it's time for you guys to start working on the tasks from lecture 10 on your own.